Happy Sunday afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Awaken Live Q&A. My name is Garen, for anyone who doesn't know. And today we have a great discussion about dreams, nightmares, and archetypes. And this should really shed some light on our dreams and the communication that is always being attempted between the unconscious parts of ourselves and the conscious parts of ourselves. So we're just going to give a few seconds for people to come online. And in the meantime, this is one of my jackets that I brought back from the Far East. And since we're going to look at the dragon as an archetype and take a look at some of the meanings of that, I decided to wear the jacket today. So first of all, before we talk about dreaming, we must, of course, talk about sleep and why we sleep. Now, contrary to popular belief, you don't actually sleep because the body needs rest. The body never stops. And I'm just going to say that one more time so we're crystal clear. Hello, Janet. Nice to see you. We do not sleep because the body needs rest. The body never stops. It has various cycles it goes through, but the body never stops. The body never rests. There's not a single cell in your body that shuts down and goes to sleep when you think you're sleeping at night. The necessary reason for sleep has to do with something much further outside of the physical realm than that, okay? The shard of consciousness that you are, that part of the infinite consciousness that's manifesting you as a physical being, can only take so much of the dissonant energy that ego produces before it literally needs to withdraw itself from that and dump that negative energy before returning into it again. The reason we feel tired and the reason we develop the aches and pains associated with tiredness have nothing to do with the body at all. They have to do with the collective effect of our thoughts and our ego on the vibratory structure that is the body. So just so we're clear about that, you do not sleep because the body ever needs to rest. In fact, the body never rests. If the body stopped, you would, in the physical realm, be dead as far as the body goes. Okay? You sleep because that what you truly are has to dump that negative energy that ego creates. Hello, Susan. How are you today? So the suggested times that we sleep, okay, and you know, 8 hours is always best. It has to do with your body's recycle time, not a need for a particular amount of sleep. It's actually, it follows the processes of the body, and your body needs that time to regenerate and heal all the damage from the previous actionable day. Okay, and that's why it's very important that you don't eat a whole lot of food before you go to bed. Because digestion, of course, takes a huge amount of energy. And if your body has to spend half the night digesting food, it cannot spend that time healing the body. If you're taking naps and the like, try to get 1.5-hour blocks. 1.5 hours is considered one full sleep cycle, where you will go through all the various stages of sleep in that 1.5-hour period and therefore obtain some rest from it. Now, this leads us into dreams and into nightmares, okay? And we're going to talk about a few definitions that we learned from Carl Jung. And he was a Swiss psychoanalyst who I happen to agree with quite a bit. He was a deeply spiritual guy. And what he says makes perfect sense. So we're going to talk about a few of these things. And there's a few definitions that we want to become aware of. And these are those definitions. If you are a woman, then your shadow figure in your dreams or nightmares, your animus, is going to be male. If you're a man, your shadow figure or anima will be feminine in nature, female. So that's an important thing to remember. The other thing to remember is what archetypes are and how archetypes manifest in our dreams. Now, archetypes are simply those things which have an otherly world appearance in our dreams. You know, clearly, if you see a big dragon or somebody who glows, for example. That's representative of an archetype. And we're going to talk about why that happens. See, according to Carl Jung, there's actually two parts of the subconscious mind, and I think he's right. And this is the unconscious. There's the personal unconscious, and this is where our forgotten memories and our blocked memories lie. The sea of all the things that happened to us that we've blocked out, that we resist looking at. And then there is the collective unconsciousness. This is literally the collective genetic foundation of everything that's occurred to what modern man is over the last couple million years. And it's from that unconscious place, that collective unconscious place, that these archetypes emerge. And also emerge, of course, a lot of our base fears. You know, we all respond a certain way to, you know, our survival instincts. These are conditioned instinctually and exist still in our unconscious collective and govern a lot of our behavior. And it's very important to become aware of this. Dreams are not a way that our unconscious mind hides from us. Dreams are actually a way that we can learn to communicate with that side of ourselves. And we're going to talk about the 4-step process of interpreting your own dreams and the benefits that this can have in your life, okay? And I'm just going to have to switch my little notes here. So before we talk about that, we're going to talk a little about Carl Jung, because he forms the basis of the dream interpretation that's widely accepted worldwide, okay? And he believes that every human being comes to what he calls the hero's journey, where your quest for wholeness within the individual you are, okay, as part of the group becomes paramount. And he describes this as a spiritual progress. You are becoming an individual. You're taking all those parts that you thought were outside of yourself and you're going inward and you're making yourself whole. Now, as with most mystics, they don't describe this process, and we would call it the dark night of the soul, or as I prefer the dark night of the ego. Okay, these processes can be quite destructive, and that's why he calls it the hero's journey. You must be willing to sacrifice everything from family members, positions in society, the whole 9 yards. And the reason they are sacrificed is your consciousness is moving up, and their consciousness is not. And the old crab bucket mentality kicks in. And that is everyone wants to pull you down and keep you where you are. And they don't do it out of any ill intent per se. It's through unconscious behavior and a lack of awareness of where you've moved to be. My wife's over there being goofy, and she thinks I can't see her from looking at the screen, but she forgets that I notice everything. So this self-knowledge involved in this individuation process, as Carl Jung says, is becoming conscious of the unconscious is no easy task. It is a challenge. It involves hardships, including separation not only from the person you used to be, but also from family, friends, and society. It's difficult because it involves giving up our persona, the mask that we wear that's made up of the cultural expectations, what we've inherited from our friends, our families, our societies, and moving forward to find out what you truly are, because of course that mask is not the true self. It is an act of heroism because you have to step outside of conventional reality and not be afraid to be different. This is the approach the mystics and every spiritual teacher talks about. It is a spiritual journey that requires constant dedication. We have to face our shadow, and it is in our nightmares, in those things that make us anxious and afraid, that we have the best opportunity for growth. And from now, and from that foundation, we're going to move into the interpretation of dreams. So step one, I'm going to relay the basis of one of my wife's dreams. She has the funnest dreams, okay? So she wakes up one morning and she was being chased by a dinosaur in a shopping mall and running with a bunch of other shoppers, okay? She has the best dreams. My dreams are much more mundane than that. I'm sitting in a little quiet pub having a whole night conversation with Christ and having and great talk. I mean, that's typically what I do in my dreams, or I'm flying somewhere, but rarely am I being chased by a dinosaur in a mall. So step one, you have to explore the associations within the symbolism. So there's various pieces of that simple dream that we can break down. So the one piece, of course, is the otherworldly or larger than life dinosaur that's in the picture. Okay. Now, she didn't say whether this dinosaur was mauling people on its way or whether everyone was managing to stay ahead of it or not, but there's the dinosaur. And then, of course, there's her being in the mall with other people, and then the running away as well. Those are the three components. And what you're going to want to do is write down all the associations that come to mind naturally for you about what you feel about each of those three things. Now, a few points to remember. Dreams, anyone who shows up in a dream, your dream is not about them. Your dream is about an inner aspect of yourself. And this is very important to remember. And we're going to cover off some tips on how to make sure that your own analysis is actually a complete and honest analysis, okay? So that is the first step. We explore those associations. And when we find the associations as we're writing that make most sense, they will click with us. Step two, we link those associations and images to inner aspects of ourself. And this is the wisdom or bust step. If you cannot be honest with yourself and open with yourself in this step and link these associations with inner aspects of yourself openly and honestly, you will gain no wisdom and no honest communication between your unconscious egoic mind and your conscious egoic mind. Dreams, as I said, are not about us. It is an inward-looking journey. It is part of that growth towards wholeness, because, of course, that unconscious part of yourself must also be brought into the light in order to release yourself from the hold that ego has on you. It is critical that this happens. Dreams will often come in extremes, and the reason being is the unconsciousness is a very block-oriented, it doesn't do it in words, it does it in big blocks of information. So anything that it wants you to look at may be manifest in an extreme to make sure that consciously you get the point. Step three is correct interpretation. And this is where we have to look and say, okay, well, what is the dream's central message? Or what is it telling me we want to do, that I need to do? And this is where we have to be very careful and where we can validate the reasonableness of our own interpretation through these four simple things. One, what you discover about your dream should be something that you did not already know. For instance, if you see a dragon in your dream, and we're going to talk about the dragon archetype after, you're going to want to explore that dragon archetype. And if part of it that resonates with you is new information, chances are that new information is the correct resonance. It has meaning in your dream. The second validation rule that you want to use is that your dream does not inflate your ego and is not self-congratulatory. If it's a dream about making you bigger and better than anyone else or anything else like that, you are misinterpreting the dream. Dreams do not inflate ego. Very careful to remember this. The third criteria that we can hold to it, okay, is that our dreams do not at any time lay responsibility at anyone else's feet but our own. So if you're interpreting a dream as telling you that it's your mom's responsibility for your behavior, again, you're fooling yourself. You want to avoid that. And the last, and probably the most critical factor, of course, is some time. You see, what dreams actually do is put us on alert to aspects of ourselves that we have to deal with. And sometimes it can take a little bit of time for us to actually reflect and watch and see how these aspects are manifesting. And that's why keeping a dream journal is very important. With Kelly, I basically said, here's the deal, honey, you keep it beside your bed. And if you wake up in the morning and you remember your dream, you just say, honey, I got it right. And you get right to writing down your dream. You make that every day. Every night before bed, I always remind her, I will remember my dreams. I will dream as I wish to dream, and I will remember what I dream. I will receive the messages. And you can do this with yourself, and what you're actually doing is you're speaking to your unconscious self and saying, it's okay to talk to me. I'm beginning to get it. Start talking to me. I'm finally listening. This is a great way to begin. So as I said with Carl Jung, the unconscious mind has those two layers, and the collective unconscious is where the archetypes come from. And they are often represented in an art and in symbolism and in mythology. And yes, absolutely, Janet, lucid dreaming, which is a type of controlled dreaming, literally where you become aware that you're dreaming within the dream. And there's numerous techniques, including a book I would very much recommend if you're interested. It's called Lucid Dreaming in 30 Days. And it's very much a little course. And within 30 days, you can literally start to have your own guided dreams, which can be a lot of fun. So we're going to look at the whole idea of dreams being a part of the path inward, okay? And when Carl Jung looked around, not only did he see it reflected in everyday life, but he was a Christian. So he turned to his own Bible, and what did he find in Luke 17? He found verse 21, that the kingdom of God is within you. It's not outside of you. The pathway to where you're going is inward. And our dreams are actually beacons and little messages from that shadowy part of ourselves. And this is where the nightmares especially come, okay? The nightmares are manifestations of those dark pieces of ourselves that we would hide. And as we've talked about before, we've been taught to hide those pieces. We've been taught that there's something wrong with you if there's a piece of you that's angry or fearful or jealous. And due to us glumping together into civilizations, we were taught that to let those out in any way is wrong and is punishable. But of course, these things build up inside of us, and then they manifest in other dysfunctions, self-harm, whether it's through addiction, harming your relationships. Either way, your dreams, especially nightmares, which elicit terror and fear and anxiety and disgust, guilt, shame, despair, sadness, depression, a feeling that they are symbolic manifestations of your shadow. And they can be dealt with in the same way. Running away from the dinosaur doesn't actually do anything in the dream. You can simply turn around and face it. And if you face it with love and compassion, as I've talked to before, oftentimes that manifestation you see in front of you will actually transform and begin to speak to you. And if not, it'll simply dissipate. Again, this goes back to the fear thing, is whenever you feel fear, walk through it, even in your dreams. Learn to walk through that fear. In our analyzing of our own dreams, the one thing we do not want to do is pick up a, Janet mentions a point And this is one of the escapism techniques that ego uses, right? Dreams are better than reality. I'd rather be asleep than awake. The awake part and the sleep part are both parts of the same. It is what we consciously create and what we determine the waking hours that puts us at the point where we'd rather be dreaming, right? And that's a distinction we always have to make in mind, is that dreaming, like anything else, can turn into an escape. And that's why I always say, lucid dreaming, it's okay to do, but don't get caught up in too much. Anything that takes you away from having to deal with your ego in your present existence is a distraction, leading you away from your task, the reason why you're here. And this is why paying attention to our dreams and learning to interpret our dreams is so incredibly valuable. So when it comes to the archetypes, the last thing we want to do is pick up a dream book we buy in a store and sit there and flip the page open to dragons, for example, and say, okay, well, a dragon is wise, so this means this to me. That's not how this works. You need to do introspection, and when you see an archetypal image of any sort, you need to look at the entire range of possibilities. Dragons are non-occidental, which means that they span all cultures. And in every different culture, dragons have a different meaning. In the case of the beautiful Chinese frog jacket I'm wearing, the dragon here is representative of the second millennium BC, before Christ, dragon of Lung, and his name was Lung, and he was wise and he was benevolent and he helped with agriculture. In the wintertime, the dragons slept in the pools and hibernated, and in the spring they took to the azure skies and brought the rain. It was a benevolent creature, part of nature. There are, of course, dragons all over the world that have negative meanings as well. What you have to do is you have to look at, for example, if you're in Western culture, chances are you have been brought up with the Christian dragon, which is equated to is the ultimate of the serpent in the Garden of Eden. So it's pure evil. And of course, Christ slaying the dragon, the hero slaying the dragon. Back in the day, they would build the new Christian churches on top of pagan worship sites on purpose. And the Christian hero would slay the pagan forces and would take control of that energy and incorporate it into their new religion. And of course, dragons were given a very negative connotation. So you really have to look at yourself and see what the feelings that are come up without involving your mind so much. Just let things flow out. And that's why I say write it down. You've heard the term automatic writing. Try just to allow what's in there to come out. As I said, the dragon in Chinese mythology, it actually has its history in the shaking of bones and throwing them out, and in the I Ching as a way of divination, of an oracle of sorts. In the Muslim faith, the dragon was very wise again, but could do great harm. It all depended on which faith that you feel connected to. So in every archetypal examination in our dreams, we must do the research and make sure that the aspect of it that we are looking at is not inflating our ego, but is indeed revealing something to us that we were unawares. And it will click, it'll resonate inside of you. I like to describe it as it plucks the right chord, and there's a string inside you that'll vibrate in sympathetic harmony with it. And then you know that you've heard the truth. There's a few things to remember when we're talking about dreams and what dreams mean, and these fall under the unconscious group archetype category. Okay, so Typically, anytime you see someone in your dream, it's not the individual you're thinking about or dreaming about. It's what that individual represents inside of you, an aspect of yourself, right? So in the case of my wife, where she dreams and sees her mother, well, that's actually speaking to the little child in her that still has not dealt with what's happened between her and her mom, and continues to have issue with it. Right? That's a pretty obvious one in that case. And oftentimes it can be very helpful to have a trusted individual come in and take a look at what you've interpreted as well. Okay, someone who knows you quite well, and they may be able to provide additional insights that you may not be willing to face up to yourself at first. Again, biggest thing, it all starts with 100% honesty with yourself on every level, letting it all out. As I always say, and please take this to heart, there is no part of you that you need to be ashamed of. The nightmares that reveal the shadow sides of ourselves, those sides have, as a matter of fact, Carl Jung believed that the ultimate creativity we possessed was within the shadow. Not within the stuff that we showed everyone else in day-to-day society. That's not where the true strength was. The true creativity, it lies in the shadows, and we must pull it out into the light. You know, I've spoken on this before. Okay, I have a soldier side of me. There's that ego role that I had for so long as essentially a professional hitman. Okay, and that role, that power, has a place in my life, but it has so when it's tempered and balanced by the other spiritual half of myself. You know, we always look at the yin and yang, right? I always keep coming back to the yin and yang as a three-dimensional ball. That dark egoic energy of the soldier role in me can serve many benefits when combined with the light of compassion. In performing tasks and getting the hard things done and getting people organized and getting them out the door to do what they need to do. I excel at that. That's all part of that side of me. But if I were to let that side out or to deny that side, even worse is to deny that side exists, you begin to create dysfunction within you. And self-deprecation, self-hate, self-harm. You start to believe the lies your ego tells you, that that side of yourself is worthless or unworthy or not good or always angry all the time. The fact that you recognize that you have anger within you is the awareness that you possess, and it is a victory moving forward. Animals you see in your dream, animals are typically indicative of low-level systems within ourselves or instinctive patterns, i.e. the fight or flight pattern. For example, in relationship, you may be a person who, when it comes time to commit, that you begin to dream about animals that are running away from something. That may be indicative of yourself, where you go back to a very unconscious fight or flight mechanism based on something that's happened in your past, perhaps hidden in that unconsciousness that you have yet to deal with. Our dreams are a constant communication to help us grow. This is what Carl Jung believed, and this is what I believe about it. When you see stones, mandalas, or other circular objects in your dreams, these are typically indicative of your higher self. They're typically signs for you to pay attention to, messages that will mark or speak to something. A place that you visit is more often or not a physical place, but a state of mind. A state of mind where you may be too entrenched in an idea, or a place that a place is representative of a place that you want to get to consciously. I.e., in my wife's case, her meditation place is, like a little island. There's ocean, trees, treehouse. There's only a few people there, and they're people she loves, and I still see her waving her hands over there that she doesn't think I see her. She forgets I'm an ex-sniper. I have eyes in the back. I have eyes all the way around. Yeah, if you relate to Native American spirituality, you may dream in accordance with that as well. So the one way that your shadow manifests out into the physical realm, and we're going to cover this off before we cover the final step, because as you notice, I said there were 4 steps and we only talked about 3 steps. And we're going to talk about the 4th step, and this is probably the most important step. But before we get there, we're going to talk about something known as psychological projection, okay? And that is when your perceived inferiority or your perceived lack is recognized as a moral deficiency in someone else. This happens all the time. They usually remain hidden. We don't even realize that we're judging ourselves through judging a behavior we see in someone else. This is another thing the ego loves to do. It loves to externalize what's going on within in what it sees in someone else. So if we despise someone for being lazy, cowardly, mean, or deceitful, or if we're constantly annoyed at someone being arrogant or greedy, we really have to ask, what hidden shadow part of ourselves do we see these traits? Because we don't hate that person. We're not constantly angry at them for it's our perception. And our perception is very much colored by that unconscious shadow. Recognizing and withdrawing these projections is part of working with your shadow. It's part of facing those nightmares and understanding that they're just overinflated examples of parts within you that need to be pulled out and loved back into the light. Not hidden anymore, not excised and cut out, but made aware of and loved back into the light. It is not even necessary to go through any psychological or psychoanalytical counseling to determine what's going on. If you look inside of yourself, you will see it, and then you can begin to make conscious choices whether you're going to continue to fall into that same hole at the same street we walk down every day and still blame everyone else, or whether we'll make the conscious choice to take another road, to not fall in the hole this time. Step 4 of dream interpretation, and this is the most critical step, is ritual. Ritual anchors the unconscious communication within the physical realm. And ritual is nothing more than the conscious performing of symbolic actions. You're performing these actions that have meaning to you consciously with awareness. This is the value and the point of ritual. So for example, if you've interpreted one of your dreams and you come up to the point that you do need to consider leaving your job and embarking on a new career, you can form a ritual in order to anchor that within your conscious mind. The physical ritual you will perform will anchor that within your conscious mind. It will make it real. It will bring it into the physical realm, and it will form the starting point for the change that you are initiating. And you can make your rituals whatever you want. I do suggest you develop a daily ritual of gratitude. This is a simple one that I do every morning, and it forms I wake up a good half hour before my wife does, sometimes a little more. And I will take at least 5 to 10 minutes of that time and list off the number of things that I am grateful for every morning. And that starts a positive vibration out into your day of just expectation of what's going to be brought next. I'm already grateful for so many things. What's next? In your dreams, when you interpret your dreams, do a ritual. Even if your dream is a nightmare. That nightmare is indicative of mental suffering that your ego is putting you through. itself through. And you know where it is in you. Drag it out into the light. You know, as we've talked about before, my wife will tell you that I am the most transparent person she's ever met. There's nothing I will not tell you about me. There's nothing I have to hide. Everything has been dragged out into the light and accepted for what it is. This is not a blame game. You are not here to accept blame for your existence, blame for the way my wife and I had a big talk about this today, because she says to me, well, isn't it okay for me to choose to be a sweet person? And I said to her, being a sweet person has nothing to do with you. It has to do with how someone chooses to interpret you. Case in point, sometimes my wife, in her attempts to be sweet, actually comes off to other people as being quite condescending. And they'll get angry about it. Is my wife being condescending? No, she's not. In her mind, she's being sweet. In the other person's mind, she's being condescending. Which one's the truth? The answer is they're both the truth, depending on who you are or who you think you are, and they're both not the truth, depending on who you think you are. This is the state of our existence. Remember this the next time you get into a little bit of a spat with someone over something. You both have a perception. Neither perception is actually the right one. They're both just perceptions. People have the same dream. Susan brought up a very good question. How do you explain two people having the same dream? And this is actually far more simple than you'll realize. Okay, it's not just two that have the same dream. There are literally millions of people who have the same dream. And that's because ego, as I said, is a human collective individuated into what we think are individuals, i.e. the guy sitting here talking on the screen right now, who goes by the name Garen. Is Garen who I am? Absolutely not. Am I really here? I certainly look like I'm here, but in actuality, there's just a happening. There's just an event going on, right? There's this energy field here that looks very solid, that's filled with mostly empty space and particles moving at near the speed of light. How is it all happening? Consciousness. People have the same dream. Millions of people have the same dreams every night. The only thing that changes are sometimes some of the personal details, okay? Let's talk about a dragon, for example. Some of them may have a dragon that has a purple mane, and someone's dragon may be friendlier than the next, and the other one may have a symbol on it related to one of their relations they're having difficulty with. This is the state of humanity and the state of the humanity ego, the overarching one, the same as humanity is actually one amongst a whole. Okay? And we as individuals have the opportunity to be one amongst a whole. And here's the rub and the cosmic irony of it all. In finding out that in individuating yourself, in going inward and making yourself whole again, you find out that you never existed as separate. And you cannot be separate. It's a cosmic irony. It'll make you laugh every time when you really think about it, okay? You go outside of yourself, and finally you turn around and start going inside yourself. And when you go deep enough inside yourself, you find that there is no self there. There's simply a magnificent whole, which you're part of. This is the beauty. That really wraps it up. There's not much more to say today. I've ran nearly 40 minutes, and I appreciate all of your time, and much love to you all. Look forward to a great one next week on teaching and how we teach others. And this also applies to the school system as well, okay? And we're also going to continue on with a little more on the course, pick up a little more of the affirmations, the agreements, and move on with there. And namaste to you all. Have a wonderful Sunday afternoon, and I hope this has been very beneficial. And of course, any questions, throw them in the announcements. I promise I'll get to them. Take care.